I was the youngest of 6 children. My mother and father were in a custody battle. I'm now 52, so this was over 45 years ago. And on the day that my mother anticipated the return of her children, she took a fatal overdose and killed herself. The judge had stayed the decision. And what started me on writing this in her wake was that I had my first daughter, and when I was holding her in my arms, I would wonder, how, if you love someone so deeply, could you leave them? And that began my effort to try to find an answer. Well, when I started to write in her wake, it was letters to Mama, which was really into a void, because I didn't know who my mother was. And it was with a sense of abandonment and rage that she couldn't be there to help me be a mother to my own child. And it evolved. Partly I was very fortunate that her best friend had kept a trunk at the time of her death, and in it was a novel that my mother was writing at the time of her death, and letters and report cards and her sort of scrapbook of her life. So going from having had nothing of hers to this treasure trove also changed the tenor of what I was writing, because then I had to integrate her voice. And so, and then the other aspect was I asked a lot of questions to anybody who knew her that was willing to talk with me. So my dad, the man that she had an affair with, who was my stepbrother's father, and if you can follow that, and people who knew my grandmother, my own siblings, and that really allowed me to recognize how the profound impact when you lose someone to suicide, and how people will tell the story differently. So if you asked one of my brothers, they would say, clearly she had bipolar disorder, this was a mental illness, that's why she died. If you asked one of my other siblings, she would say it was the loss of her children in a custody battle. And I came away saying, I definitely think that my mother had problems with, clearly, depression, a level of impulsivity, and she'd made a suicide attempt 2 years before, which places you at increased risk. And I came away through this process also knowing that with all of us, we try to write a story of our parents, and when we come back as adults, hopefully, if we put a lot of effort into it, we have a level of both being able to honor them and have compassion for what might have been shortcomings and forgiveness. And the most profound thing that I came away with is that love lasts longer than death, and that we can have losses and we can find a way to build a connection even to those that we have lost.